Chapter 27. The Gift. The next few months were productive. The paving of the King's Road was going quickly and efficiently. It wasn't uncommon to hear tell of a town hamlet or town popping up along the paved areas. The great houses had all begun production of their own roads, leading to the larger cities in their domains. Smaller houses did the same, though the roads they began led to their keeps. The roadwork alone boosted the economy sufficiently, and with the Ironborn being paid to ferry supplies from one side of Westeros to another, the Iron Island was profiting greatly. The roadwork also put hundreds of thousands of people to work, whether they were helping to build the road itself, shipping goods, caring or cooking for the workers, or helping in other ways. No one who wanted a job went without one. There was such a high demand for even basic labor that the common folk had begun taking shifts between farming and roadwork. Usually they had idle time while waiting for crops to grow. Tending the fields during the process didn't take as many hands. So families would hand the tending work to the younger members of the family, while the older members would take days or weeks to work on their part of the road. With the road being such a large priority in each region, the liege lords ensured the areas were safe. Banditry and violence were at an all-time low along the road. Guards and sellswords regularly patrolled the road and the areas around it, ensuring that the workers were safe at the work site, as well as coming and going from the work site. Serena suggested that crime was also low because people who typically resorted to stealing to survive or thrive were now working on the road itself. In either case, less crime meant happy citizens, and I was content with that. Stannis had stayed at King's Landing for a few weeks after Shireen was cured. After a few nights of careful talks, I managed to persuade him to allow her to ward with me in the Red Keep. I would teach her etiquette, statecraft, and give her a proper education. What I didn't tell him was that I could sense a power within her that the drowned god had bestowed when he cured her. I wanted to discover what this power was, draw it out, and help her master it. Even with the promise of my tutelage, Stannis was still hesitant to allow Shireen to ward so soon after being cured. It wasn't until I informed him that I intended to name her my heir until Tyrion and I had children of our own that he agreed. We attended the graduation of the Royal Army's first series of soldiers. Speeches were given, order duty stations were handed out, and several Westerosian swords were handed to those who proved themselves worthy of higher ranks. Newly crafted recurve bows were handed out to the graduates as well, and became part of the basic training regiment from that point forward. The soldiers would travel to their assigned forts and keeps, and would initially help with the maintenance and reconstruction of their new homes. They would also begin patrolling the area to help keep crime down. The dragons were the size of horses at this point. Mehrunes was the largest, and made for an excellent mount for me already. He didn't mind. After all, he was used to carrying me as a Deathclaw, so why not as a dragon? We'd taught Triana to allow Tyrion to ride her as well. I allowed Alefric to go without a rider for now, but was considering who I would allow to ride him. It was 4 months after curing Shireen that I received a raven from House Stark. Ned had executed a deserter from the Wall who claimed he had seen the dead walking beyond the wall. It was finally time. The Night King had stirred, and his whites had begun to amass their army. It was a slow process at first, but left to their own devices, the army would begin to grow exponentially. I commanded that a ship be made ready for myself and a small delegation. We could have easily taken a portal to Winterfell, but sailing would allow us to stop at certain ports, inspect roadwork, and meet with smaller houses along the way. There wasn't any real rush. The Night King would need years to build up his army, and this move would stop him from being able to do that properly. So we took a month to sail up the east coast of Westeros, meeting with small houses and great houses along the way. We entered talks about construction supplies, food distribution for winter, and any other concerns they might have. By the time we'd reached White Harbor, Lord Manderley, White Harbor's liege lord, and Ned were waiting at the docks to welcome us. Mehrunes led Triana and Alefric into the air to go hunting. Mehrunes would stop the other two from going after humans and livestock, so that was something we didn't have to concern ourselves about. The sight of the dragons helped to inspire awe among the Northerners, though. "My queen!" Lord Manderley exclaimed as I stepped off the gangplank and onto the docks. He was an extremely fat man, so fat that he would be described as morbidly obese in any universe. I was surprised that he was able to stand of his own volition at this point, but he was just outside of the litter that had brought him here, so I doubted he could stand for long. He attempted what I assumed was a bow. "Wyman?" I smiled up at him. He and I had gotten to know each other during the rebellion, when my ships would come to pick up soldiers or supplies. "It's good to see you again after so long. Have you lost weight?" Wyman laughed as I smirked up at him. He and I had developed a relationship where we would make fun of each other's physical traits. Where he had always been obese, I had always been short. We made a habit of poking fun at each other in good fun. "Perhaps, Your Grace," Wyman chuckled. "Do you still need someone to pick you up to ride your horse?" "At least I can still ride a horse," I shot back. Wyman chuckled. "I've found more entertaining things to ride." I snickered at the insinuation. "As have I. I would recommend a dragon or a husband, but it seems you prefer a litter." He nodded with amusement. "Yes. Well, it seems we've both found something we don't have to be helped onto to ride." "Don't be so certain about that," I smiled cheekily. "My dragon gets bigger by the day, and I've always needed to hop a little bit to mount my husband properly." A blush crept onto Ned's cheek. "Your Grace, perhaps we should escort you and the others to the castle so we can discuss the matter at hand." Tyrion strolled up and grinned up at Ned. "Oh, come now, Lord Stark. Allow the Queen some levity, won't you? She hasn't seen her friend Lord Manderley in some time." I chuckled and hooked my arm around Tyrion's. "Lord Stark is right. We have time enough for jokes and conversation, but winter is coming, and we need to prepare." I could see the gratefulness in Ned's eyes even as Wyman nodded. "Well said, Your Grace. Come, we've had quarters made ready for all of you." Wyman got into the littler and was carried up to the castle with Ned and I behind him, and the members of the small council I'd brought with me behind us. The people of White Harbor were out in the streets to cheer as we went by. I had ensured that Tyrion tossed coins to people on occasion, so that our arrival didn't come without some form of charity. Free money never hurt one's reputation. An hour later, we sat around a large table in a room adorned with hunting trophies and a large, crackling fire. Lord Manderley, Lord Stark, Serena, Alan, Tyrion, Shireen and I sat at the table. Robert, John, and Barristan had come with us and were standing guard nearby. I looked at Ned. "As you know, I took your letter about what the deserter talked about seriously, Lord Stark." "Have you come to see the wall, then?" Ned asked. "Perhaps issue commands to repair and man the other castles along the wall?" "You're partially correct," I nodded. I motioned to Serena. Serena smiled. "The Queen has decided to prevent the enemy from increasing its forces by offering the wildlings amnesty. They can come over to this side of the wall so long as they swear fealty to the realm, to House Stark, and a percentage of them join the royal army." "Wildlings?" Lord Manderley scoffed. "On this side of the wall, that's inviting the fox into the henhouse. Where would you even put them?" "The gift," Serena replied. "It's been in disuse and disrepair for far too long. Wildlings will have no cause to pillage lands they have to share." "And they already know what's coming for them," Alan interjected, his voice cautionary. "They will be doing their best to get past the wall and away from the White Walkers any way they can. With this plan, we bring the wildlings over to our cause and indebt them to the Queen and House Stark in one simple step." Wyman seemed doubtful. "I've never known a wildling to show an ounce of honor. What's to stop them from pillaging the whole of the North once they're here?" Northern steel, I replied, and dragons. But the wildlings raid the north because they need supplies. Supplies which they can't get north of the wall. Most of them are honorable enough that they will be grateful for the chance to live, to let their families live, that they will abide by oaths sworn. Ned, ever the pragmatist, clearly didn't like the idea, but he understood it. He was willing to entertain it. What oaths would you make them swear? Ned asked as he leaned back in his chair. My lord, you can't be entertaining this? Wyman gasped. Winter is coming, Lord Manderley, Ned intoned. I've executed my fair share of men, and I tell you now that none of them have lied with their head on the block. That deserter saw what he saw. His last request was that I made sure that others knew. I may not have seen a White Walker in my lifetime, but my son stands here in this room with a dire wolf. The Queen has dragons. Magic has come back to the world. And if word from the south is to be believed, gods are showing themselves to the eyes of men. I'll not have it said that when the White Walkers re-emerged from their slumber, that House Stark failed in its duty. I smiled at Ned. He had just made the mystical into a statement of fact, accepting the reality of the world around him for what it was. He didn't shy away from it or try to reconcile it as a madman's ramblings. His willingness to believe what was presented to him based on its merits, regardless of how improbable it might have been, was admirable. You would have made a fine king, Lord Stark, I bowed my head. Perhaps, if the gods were cruel to place me on a throne, Ned dismissed the compliment. As to the oaths, each wildling tribe would have to swear loyalty to the realm, the throne, and to House Stark, I replied. A third of their fighting-age members must volunteer to join the royal army. In exchange, the crown will help supply them with lumber and stone to build their communities. They will fall under your protection and be subject to the laws of Westeros. Furthermore, I added, I will allow you to choose from among them those you believe worthy of being ennobled, so that new houses may rise from their ranks. They will be counted among your bannermen, and you may divvy out to them portions of the gift as you see fit. However, they will be charged with supporting the Night's Watch when the time comes, and aid in the defense of Westeros when needed. How many wildlings will you be making this offer to? Ned asked. There's maybe 150,000 wildlings beyond the wall, I replied. I'll make the offer to them all, but I suspect that most of them will take the offer. You'll likely see 120,000 new residents in the north, as well as a few hundred giants. Giants? Ned and Wyman asked in unison. Giants, I confirmed with a nod. Very large, very fierce in a fight, very capable workers, and relatively docile when left alone. I'm sure you would agree that a population of giants would significantly bolster the North's defenses. Ned stared at me, clearly fighting the desire to ask if I was serious. And you would let them live amongst the people of Westeros? They are peaceful people, I insisted. They're just big. Give them a chance, my lord, and I promise you that you find them to be loyal and trustworthy bannermen. More loyal and trustworthy than the Boltons, for sure. Likely just as loyal as House Reed, who they may find much in common with. In fact, you'd be surprised how much House Stark and House Reed have in common with the wildling tribes if you were willing to speak with them. Be that as it may, Your Grace, Ned allowed the practicality of his tone to carry his words. Many of my bannermen would see me allowing the wildlings to settle in the gift as a dereliction of my duty as Warden of the North. How should I explain this to them? You may tell them that it was at my command and insistence, I replied smoothly. Or you may point out that, as Warden of the North, your duty is to protect the North from threats. The wildlings are only a threat because they live in an area that forces them to raid the North for supplies. Removing that need for them to raid, and using them to aid in the North's defense and commerce, can only benefit everyone. They survive winters beyond the wall, Serena pointed out. That means they've learned other ways to start warm, farm, and preserve food more efficiently than we have. Their knowledge will only help the North come winter. Wyman sighed and shook his head. I cannot say I like the idea, Your Grace, but I can see the logic in it. If you believe it can be done peacefully, then House Manderley will stand behind you. The wildlings have little in the way of grudges against the people of the North, Serena replied. Alan nodded. If nothing else, their animosity is directed to the Night's Watch. Maybe House Stark as well, but they're a practical people. You offer them, their family, and their tribe's safety, and they will honor that. There will be some holdouts, of course, I admitted, but I'm more concerned about people from the North whose family might have been killed during a wildling raid trying to seek revenge. It will fall upon the lords of the North to keep the peace. Ned took in a slow, deep breath. He held it as he let the understanding of the proposal, the benefits, and the new hassles that would come with it wash over him. I could see the decision being made in his mind as he settled on it. Very well, Your Grace, Ned gave an acquiescing smile. If this is your will, and you believe it will work out for the best, then I will trust you. I smiled gratefully. Thank you, Ned. I appreciate your trust more than you can imagine. Lord Manderley, I said, as I looked at Wyman, send a raven to Castle Black. Let them know to expect us within a month. Command them to stop all ranging. Have Benjen Stark sent beyond the wall to find Mance Rayder. Have him deliver our terms and instructions to meet at the wall after we arrive. Ensure that no hostilities between encamped wildlings and the Night's Watch occur. Wyman bowed his head. As you command, Your Grace. I caught the look Ned gave me and understood his concern. Benjen was his younger brother, and I was sending him into the heart of wildling territory, alone, under a banner of peace. He understood the implication. They would get a Stark as a hostage to ensure that the talks went over peacefully. He didn't like it, but he understood it and accepted it. What he didn't know was that Mance was a level-headed man. He would see the offer, and he would see who we sent, and understand it to be genuine. The next day we would ride north, making for the wall.